My name is Andrew Naschulits. Today is January 25th, 2011. I'm here with the Veterans History Club interviewing Ronald Ouimette. Please state your full name.
My name is Ronald Ouimette. Would you like me to start with the day that I was drafted into the United States Army and progress with that?
Yes, please do.
Okay. December 3rd, 1957, I had to report to Rome, New York, and get on a train and go to Syracuse and be processed up in Syracuse and then shipped to Fort Dix, New Jersey. At Fort Dix, New Jersey was where was a large processing center. There was thousands of soldiers there. I was processed in as a brand new recruit, and it wasn't very pleasant. They got to you pretty good. As you can see in this picture here, that was after 3 days I was in the Army. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. And from then I was issued clothing and we were given all kinds of shots. And then I eventually was shipped to a basic training unit in old World War II barracks. They weren't very pleasant. They were only boards on them and they weren't very nice, and the bathrooms weren't very nice either. And we had about 40 guys in each one of them. Spent 8 weeks there in basic training, okay? What they did was they would take you and indoctrinate you into the military life. In other words, you didn't go off post, you didn't go anywhere for about 8 weeks. Okay, only was a holiday and we were able to go out for that. And what they do is they take and they try to stamp out the life that you know, the outside life, to become part of the military. The military is a very structured, disciplined organization where all of us, if you have 20 or 30 or 40 people, act as one, yet you can act as an individual and think as an individual. Okay? Basic training, after I finished basic training, I was shipped to Fort Eustis, Virginia. Now, this is an interesting story that I want you to listen closely to, because it's like a time capsule. You ever seen The Time Machine?
Yeah.
The movie in a time capsule? Well, I'm going to take you back to 1950. 1950s, okay? Life was different in the 1950s, okay? The whole world was different, okay? And I was from upstate New York. This is upstate New York here. This is a different world here in upstate New York. You're going to probably one of the finest schools in the United States. But when you leave upstate New York and you go to other places, you're going to find an awakening, a big awakening. And I was a young guy, about 22 years old. I was married. I hadn't been much of any place because we didn't get to go anywhere. I got on this bus and they were shipping me to Fort Eustis, Virginia, which was right on the North Carolina border, okay?
Yeah.
Where you ever heard of Williamsburg?
Yeah.
Well, it was right near there, okay? And I got on the bus and you see this? This is the bag that I had all my clothes in, okay? Everything that I own, you carried in this. This is the original bag I had.
So you can
And it was a big, heavy bag that you put on your shoulder and you threw on the bus. So we traveled for I don't know how many hours on a bus, okay? I have no idea where I'm going. So we pull into a bus station. I'm trying to catch everything. This is very interesting. You're going to like this. And I think your teacher's going to enjoy this also. The bus trip was tiring, okay? We didn't stop. So we pulled into, this is Virginia now, okay? I'm from upstate New York. Here, right where you guys are, okay?
Yeah, I think
World is different. 1950s. Try to put yourself in the 1950s. Now listen to my story. This is very interesting. This is something that happens and was very crushing to me, okay? I got off the bus. I had a big heavy bag. Bus station. I had to go to the men's room. I've been riding for I don't know how long, right? So Mr. Ouimette drops his bag, and Mr. Ouimette looks, he says, men. Mr. Ouimette goes into the men's room, okay?
All right.
I'm doing my thing, right?
Yeah.
There's an Afro-American standing over here, there's an Afro-American standing here, another one here, and another one here. And they're all looking at me very funny-like. Very unusual.
All right.
I finish what I'm doing, not thinking anything of it. Remember where I came from?
Yeah.
Upstate New York. That's why I have to keep explaining this to you. I washed my hands and I left. I walked out of there, and all of a sudden, a southern gentleman over in the lobby calls me over. He calls me Soldier Boy. He says, Soldier Boy, come here. And I says, what? What's that? He says, do you know where you just went into the bathroom? Where you just went? And I said, yeah. I says, I just got off the bus. Opened my mouth. You could tell I wasn't from the South, right? They all have a drawl down there.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah. I says, I got here and I went into the bathroom and I'm going to be stationed at Fort Eustis. He said, well, you Soldier Boy, you don't, when you're down here, you don't go in. This is just the way he said it. You don't go into the bathroom there. Okay? Now, I didn't look above. It said men, right?
Yeah.
It said above it, colored only. Over on this side, he pointed, was white. So I'm trying to, a time capsule for you, 1950s, okay? That's the way the world was. Now, if you were me and you were in this uniform, the same uniform I wore when I walked in there.
Yeah.
A very crushing blow for me as a young man, okay, 22 years old. I didn't know any. Growing up in New York State, you're with Afro-Americans, you grew up, you play basketball, you're all good friends, you work together and so forth. But that's the way the South was in the 1950s. It's an experience that I'll never forget. And I want you to remember this and write this down because this is the way the world was. Now, from Fort Eustis, I was processed into, you want me to, you're not asking me questions, you want me to keep going on?
Yeah, please keep going
You
on.
sure? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
You sure?
And Andrew, you can just interject if there's something you want to
Anytime,
know.
ask me
yeah.
anything. And don't be afraid. I want you to.
Yeah.
Feel comfortable. But you see what I'm saying about a time capsule?
Yeah.
And when I'm talking, I'm trying to. I want you to put you in a uniform, how you would feel. You know?
Yeah, because I wouldn't feel very good about
No,
that.
you wouldn't feel very comfortable. And definitely I wasn't. Okay. So at Fort Eustis, I was processed, and here I was. I could have went to Korea. The Korean War had just ended. I could have went to Europe. I could have went to here. I could have went to, whatever. And I said, and they called me in, and they said, Mr. Ouimette, you're going to the Arctic. I said, what? You're going to DEWLINE, Defense Early Warning System. Now back at my time in the 50s and right after the war, the Russians and the United States were not very friendly.
No,
Okay,
they
there was a
weren't.
Cold War. I'm trying to explain, okay?
Yeah, nuclear war.
And way up in the Arctic was DEWLINE, the Defense Early Warning Systems were up there monitoring the Russians, okay? I didn't know much about it, but they informed me that you're going to the Arctic. So here I am. I called my wife and I said, you're not going to come with me on this. Then I proceeded to have training for this, okay? I had all kind of first aid. I had all kinds of winter training. They sent me to Fort Belvoir, Virginia. If I'm going too fast, let me know. And I got training there, and then I came back, and we got ready to go to the Arctic. I had no idea what's going on, where I'm going, what the whole deal is. So then they took us all on a bus to Fort Dix, New Jersey, and there was McGuire Air Force Base, a big Air Force base, where we were going to leave. And I've got a lot of pictures here, and if I show you, I don't know if I got a picture or not of the airplane. I can probably show it to you later, I guess, but a picture of the airplane that I flew on. It was a military air transport, okay?
Right.
Now you can remember, this is military. This is not a commercial airplane. This is 1950s. Now the seats on there are not like the seats that you, okay? So they got us all set to go. We're going to the Arctic. We got on a plane, prop jobs, all right, props.
Yeah.
Now we flew from McGuire Air Force Base. I think we stopped in, I'm trying to remember, it was over 50-some years ago. I think we stopped in Goose Bay, Labrador, Goose Bay someplace and refueled, and then we went on to Thule, Greenland. If you had a globe here, I'd show you where it is. It's the top of the world.
Yeah.
There's a big Air Force base up there, right?
Yeah.
Now you can remember, when I left here, it was starting to get spring really nice, right?
Yeah, it was.
Now,
getting-
I flew for 88 hours in a seat that wasn't much better than this. And they gave me a bag to eat, some food, you want to call it that. And I had a comfort place on the plane, but it wasn't very comfortable. And we flew in. And remember, it's beautiful here. Like, we flew into Thule Air Base, and we got into Thule Air Base. It's dark. It was dark all the time when I got there. Top of the world. It's the dark season. When you get to the Arctic, it's the dark season, okay?
Yeah.
Okay? Now, after we got there, I could cover a lot of things. We were in Thule, and from there, they shipped us up to, we were transported up to the edge of the ice cap. And the ice cap is where the beginning of, it covers the ice that covers the whole Arctic, okay? And it's like looking off into the distance when you got to where I was supposed to stay, of blue-green ice, and you could see the snow blowing off, way off in the distance. And they had a road that was built by the engineers to get up on top of it, okay? Well, once we got there, they transported us up to where I was going to live. Now, probably in here there's pictures of it too. We lived in what they call on the edge of the ice cap. It was a ways from Thule, in a Quonset hut. You know what a Quonset hut looks like? Okay. Now, the only thing inside that Quonset hut to keep you warm were 2 little oil stoves in a sand pit, okay? That's all there was. Now, you can remember, okay? And they were all hooked together. All of the Quonset huts.
Yeah.
And plus, the biggest one was a mess hall, what you call a mess hall. The reason they were all put together because the season was coming on, the light season, when we were going to be real busy, and I'll get into that, what we did. But up there, it was cold all the time. I mean, you think 20 below zero was something? I mean, that was like nothing, okay? It was cold all the time. So this is what I lived in. And our main job task was to go out onto the ice cap, okay?
Right.
On the ice cap, about X amount of miles out. I don't know how many it was, but it took us, 2, 3, 4 days to get out there where we had to go with supplies, and we weren't told because it was the warning system. You're told with military what you should and what you shouldn't do, okay? How we got out there were by sleds, what they call sled. We were called like sled companies. I'm trying to cover this fast. There's so much of this you could take hours I could cover. We went out there and we lived in what they call a wanigan. A wanigan was a name they called it, okay? And what it was is nothing but a big trailer-like, insulated, well insulated, with skis on it, okay?
All right.
And all of the supporting sleds had skis on it to bring the supplies out, okay? One of the large wanigans was for you, him, and me. We would be the drivers that would drive the large, if I could get you, I wish I could show you, pictures would show you what a big D8 cats, what they were like. Yeah, oh, there's some pictures, there's a good one. That's me. Okay, what pulled these were D8, you know what a big D8 cat is?
Yeah.
Caterpillar, that's what I was, a Caterpillar, cat operator. And what they did was they took a cats, and they did this in Schenectady, New York, before we even went up there, and they modified them. What they did was they put a cab on them, okay, so he wouldn't freeze to death,
All right.
and there was heat in there, right? And then, as you can see here, they had a tank in front of it, extra diesel tank, and they had one in the back, okay?
All right.
Okay? Now, this is how we travel. Now, you can imagine how fast we move. Not very fast, right?
No.
And it was continuously for 8 hours. You'd stop after 8 hours, and we'd switch drivers, and you continuously go on. Now, the tracks, there were many tons, but they wouldn't sink in the snow because, let me show you something. Hold it. This is how wide the track was. 52 inches on each side. You hear me? See how big? That's how big those tracks were on each side. Okay? Just to let you know. And they would only go down into the snow that much. Okay?
All right.
And these wanigan was hooked together, and in front of it was a huge wanigan, and it had a large generator, okay? So
Right.
your power out
Yeah.
there, right? And they were hooked together, and there was a small mess Wanigan, and then there was one that you and I and him would be sleeping in, okay?
All right.
And you continuously would go out until you reached the site where it was, and it took days to get there. But you'd continue, every 8 hours you would stop, change the drivers, and on you would go.
All right.
Now, inside the Wanigans was the system to keep it warm, and they had like antifreeze that ran through all the pipes inside of it because it was below zero and cold. They keep heat in there, and the heat would keep you somewhat warm. We had a bunk just like to be in submarines, you know, sit there, and there'd be 2 or 3 of them. And then you'd have the mess one where you'd spend a little time and read books, and that's about it. Now, every 8 hours they would stop. And on one side of the Wanigan, there was what they call a huge bin, and then there was a tank above it, and this bin below it. And you'd go outside, and they'd open it up. And one of the guys had to go up, and it was a snow melter. They get water, right?
Yeah.
So you'd fill it with snow, right? Close it. And in the meantime, one of the other guys would take the honey bucket. You know what a honey bucket is?
Yeah.
Okay? And you'd put it on the opposite side in the snow, Doug. So you want to make sure when you come back and you go out that you didn't dig in the snow the wrong place, right?
Yeah.
I got you laughing, right? Well, what would happen is the snow would melt, okay? Because you had the coils from the antifreeze and so forth running through the system. And then they would transfer it up into a big tank that would heat it. And then they had a little shower, and you could stay somewhat clean while you were out there on the ice cap.
Yeah.
So, any ice cap in front of the train, there would be a little vehicle, like track vehicle, like winter one you'd see out here now, and it was called a weasel. It had like dish pans on the front of it, underneath it, on the front. I hope I'm not boring you with this.
No, you're
You see?
really interesting.
And they were out there to detect any crevasse, what do you want to call it, crevasses, you know? You know what they are.
Yeah.
Now, if there is, be a hole in the snow, they'd have to blow it and then fill them in, and then on you go on the road, onto the trail that takes you out there. Now, remember one thing, I'm going to ask you a question. How good do you think a compass would be? Ask him too. How good do you think a compass would be up there in the Arctic? Not much good, huh?
No, not very good
It'd be
at all.
worthless. So you had to stay on the trail or the road all the time, whatever they had. And many times when we were out there, we'd get storms that were so bad we had to stop, okay? Whiteouts, you know, that you just couldn't even see. So what they would do is you could never shut off the DA cat, because diesel fuel, did you ever see diesel fuel or oil when it gets 20, 30 below zero? It's like glue.
Yeah.
You would never be able to start them again, so they ran constantly, okay? So what they would do is the driver would come back in, okay? They tie a rope around you, because I had it happen to me, and I'm serious when I say it, and I was scared when I went out. And every so often, they'd go out and get in the cab and move the train so that you wouldn't get snowed in. You follow me?
Yeah.
I think you know what I mean, okay? And this is how it was when it was real bad. I remember tying it around me, and they said, they never called me Ron, they couldn't pronounce my name, Ouimette. They always had problems with it. So they called me Frenchie. It was always French. Frenchie, it's your turn. And I remember going out there. I couldn't see anything, and I said, whatever you do, don't let this rope go. I'll never get back on.
Oh, God.
But I'm trying to cover things quick. But this is how it was all the way out there and all the way back. Now, once you got back in the camp, actually, we were cleaner when I was out there than in the camp, because in this Quonset hut, there was 2 stoves, and that's about it, okay?
All right.
Now, we didn't have any drinking water to speak of if you wanted to drink it, so we didn't drink. We had a lot of juices that we drank when we were up there, okay?
Okay.
And we were given a ration and a half of food all the time, because out in the winter cold, whether you know it or not, the training they gave you for the cold, you know,
Yeah.
your body needs more energy, so they always had plenty of food for you. The clothing we had were large parkas. They had what they call mukluks. That's what they call them back then.
Alright.
Well, mukluk is an Eskimo boot, okay? That's just what it was. It was rubber, it was canvas with a big booty. And the snow up there was always cold, so you didn't worry about slushy or anything like that. And we wore those all the time. Then they had other ones they called bunny boots.
Right.
And you always were very, very careful when you went out, okay? Do you ever see frostbite? It's pretty nasty.
No, it
When
is.
it gets so cold, when you go out into like 20, 25 below zero, you won't even feel yourself being frostbite.
Oh
okay?
yeah, I've had
You
that.
can't?
Yeah.
So a lot of times what I would do is take a little Vaseline and stuff, put on your face, you know? And then I had a mask like you could put on when you went outside so you
Yeah.
wouldn't, you know. And we had big, heavy parkers. That was the kind of gear. And even around camp, when you're inside, these were wool. These were all made of heavy 100% wool, okay? So they kept you warm. Now the problem is, we didn't have much sanitation or place to take a shower and stuff. Got to remember, you're out in the middle of no place, right? In the Arctic, and you're going to be there almost over 5 months, almost 6 months. So there's no flush toilets, okay? Now, I don't want to embarrass you. You see a bucket? Did you see over there? You know how the buckets they have, the round ones?
Yeah.
When you went to where the place was to go, when you were in camp, there was a toilet seat on it, and that was it.
All right.
That was it. There's nothing else.
No.
And there wasn't really any showers to keep clean, so you had to do the best you can to heat up some water to keep yourself somewhat clean. Yeah? So you all started smelling pretty good, but you all smelled the same, so it didn't make any difference.
Yeah.
Right? Now, supposedly, this is another thing. If you, right outside the back, there was a little covering on the barracks, on the Quonset hut. And there was a step stool, a little step to get up. Now, if you had to do your number one, urinate,
Yeah.
you'd go outside. It's cold. You step up there. It had a 55-gallon drum, okay?
All right.
And it had a funnel. That was it. That's where he went. You follow what I'm talking
Yeah.
about? Okay. This is the way I live. Now, all the time I was up there, the food was good, but I ate powdered eggs and powdered milk for almost 6 months, over 5 months.
All right.
Never had any. Well, fresh vegetables you're not going to get in the Arctic, right? So, in fact, the only time that ships can ever get into Thule, which you could see where I was located, way away from Thule, near the ice cap, on a clear day you could see all the way down into the bay. And I can remember, this is the middle of July, when a Danish cutter was going up through, cutting its way up through the bay, so that the big ships from the United States with all the cargo could come in. Now remember, another thing I probably forgot, we're in the daylight season now. 24 hours a day, it's daylight.
All right.
At night, what you want to call night would just be like, maybe it is now, not quite as bad,
All right.
okay? And the ships would come in for about, maybe a month, month and a half, then they'd have to get back out. Of course, Denmark owns Greenland.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we don't own it, yeah. So, I'm trying to, what else can I, ask me something else about the Arctic or something. Oh!
I want to know how cold.
Copy, if you
Yeah.
want a
How
copy
cold
of
was
this.
cold?
This is, huh?
How cold was cold?
Oh, it would probably get around 40 below, maybe.
Okay.
You know, probably the coldest it would get. And it would be 30 below, 20 below. And then when the summer season came, it did warm up some. And, you know, there's pictures in here. We're out on the ice cap there, and I got it marked there like in July, and I got a big parka on, and, you know, the wind's blowing, and, you know,
Wow.
whatever.
Yeah, I see that you have an M1 carbon
Yeah.
sharpshooter medal.
Yeah.
How many? How'd you have to earn that?
Well, they take you to the range, and everybody went to the range, and you'd fire at targets and so forth, and they see how you scored, and that's how you got it. And the second one underneath is for the carbine. You know the carbine,
Yeah.
MB1 carbine?
Yeah.
And also, the second time when I was in the service, which I'll get back to that, I was in charge of a 30 caliber machine gun too.
All right.
Yeah. So this was pretty much my, you know, if you want to keep that, this was Our Lady of Thule. Now, you guys, are you religious at all? Are you Catholics or? You know,
Lutheran.
Okay. Oh, whatever. If you're a Catholic. Now, I'll tell you stories like, on Sundays, We would have mass if they could get a helicopter and the weather was decent and they bring a
Alright.
priest up. And how we would set up the altar for it, we'd take a couple of horses, work horses, horses, and put some bunch of planks on it, and that's where you'd have mass.
Okay.
I have to stop for 1 second.
Sure.
We have 25 minutes left on this, and I just need to know if you need to catch a late bus.
Yeah.
You do have to catch the late bus?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have to wrap up at least Andrew's portion.
Let me know, okay?
In the next...
You want me to be
20
all
minutes.
done?
We have this is how much time we've been.
Oh, that's how much time we've been. Okay, so we
Yeah.
have 35 minutes. So
Okay.
Andrew needs to leave here in about 12 minutes
Okay.
because of the late bus, if that's what you have to catch.
Yeah. That's
So why don't you make sure you ask him everything you wanted to ask him, and then if there's other things that Doug and I, because you're getting picked up, right?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
So,
what was?
so
Go
we'll
ahead.
let him go.
Yeah.
Sure.
What was your primary weapon?
My primary weapon was, when I was first went in, was an M1. And M1 was all the time. Now, when I got called back in the second time, we haven't covered that, I want to get to that,
Yeah.
I had a carbine,
Okay.
because I was a bulldozer.
Yeah.
You ever seen the movie John Wayne?
No.
Those guys with the bulldozers, any of those movies? That's what I
Oh.
was. The second time I was in a combat engineer battalion.
Okay.
Combat engineer battalion goes with the infantry, and they make paths for the infantry so they can through, and explosives and so forth. That's
Okay.
what my second time was. You want to wrap up for the Arctic? The only thing one thing I want to mention is, I want you to listen closely. There was a woman behind every tree up there. Got you laughing, haven't I? There are no trees. One time we had a USO show, and that was about it. And to entertain ourselves, we played a lot of cards. There was no TV. Mail was very important. My wife wrote almost all the time.
All right.
And it was a kind of a depressing place, too. We had one guy go back that, it got to him quite a bit. But it was a working unit, and it was the only one like it in the United States Army. It was the Transportation and Environmental Operations Group. It was the only type in the Army.
All right.
And it was quite an experience for me, okay? You thought a lot about home, and you thought a lot about everything when you were up there, because you were in the middle of nowhere, and there was nobody to come and get you. And if you got hung up out there, it's not like jumping in an airplane and coming,
Yeah. While you were up in the Arctic, did they ever tell you why you were up there?
Yes, we were there supporting, listen to what I'm saying, DULINE, Defense Early Warning System. They had stuff out there, okay, underneath the snow.
Okay.
They were monitoring the Russians, because we weren't friends with the Russians back then, believe me. It was called part of the Cold War.
Yeah.
Now, do you want me to get into the second time when I was in?
Whatever.
What do you want
I
to do?
want
You
Andrew
tell
to
me.
Yeah,
ask
please do,
questions like
You do?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, December 1959, December 3rd, I was discharged. I came home, started my life again. A year later, 1960, October 15th, my daughter was born, which is a teacher, Mrs. Cooper here. She's down at, she's a good friend of hers. And she was born.
Okay.
And starting my life, and we're thinking about buying a house, trying to, get myself back into the swing of things. And lo and behold, I received a letter. The stuff is all in here. I've got everything I ever did in the service, but it's all in here if you guys wanted to look at it or took it, but you'd have to look, I'd have to find it for you afterwards. I got a letter from the government stating that by order of the President of the United States, you've been recalled to active duty in the United States Army because of a crisis. See, there's no such thing as you're out.
Forever.
Now, if I was to, I'm a guy that was in, right? And I've been out 2 or 3, even 4 years. How long do you think it'd take to get you acclimated back into the Army? Not even a day. You never forget.
I have a question though. Were you discharged after the first time?
No, it's separation. You never get a discharge until 6 years later.
Oh,
That's why.
Okay.
You're still,
So how many years
So you-
you went in 57 and you were,
it was 6 years later before you got a discharge.
but you were in the first time in
Yeah,
the Arctic for
2 years.
So they
Yeah.
came back
Yeah, right,
and
yeah.
got, that's
She's
interesting.
laughing. That's the truth. They came back.
Very
Yeah.
interesting. Okay.
And it was pretty disappointing for me in my life. I figured I had done my part for the country,
Yeah.
right? So I had to do it again. And the second time, this was the uniform they issued me the first time. Now the second time, I've got another one home, and it's the green one that they wear now. You seen the
Alright.
green one?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't. I wear this one because I figured you guys would enjoy seeing an old World War II. This is Ike. They call it an Ike uniform. Eisenhower, you heard of him? He was
Yeah.
the head of the invasion. He's the one who helped design this type. So, but as I say, I was called back into the service, so I had to report to Fort Devens, Massachusetts, October 1961.
Okay.
What was happening was, at that time, we almost were at the very brink of the war with Russia. I mean, very close. That's why I was called. We were ready to go to war over in, yeah, it was, and I was called into a combat engineer battalion. That's nothing but an infantryman with a bulldozer and a, you're laughing, remember we were talking about it? And I reported to Fort Devens, Massachusetts for the unit, and I was in old World War II barracks again. You know what these were like? These were so cold in the wintertime that you had to use your big army overcoat over you to stay warm. There was no insulation. There were just boards with 2x4s. And back then, everybody smoked. Smoking was the big thing. And you had a butt can on the post right near you, most of them, a couple of them. You wake up in the morning and they were froze. Then you go downstairs and you go into a large latrine, very private. They had about 4 spouts that were for a shower, and they had about 4 commodes with no doors, everything open, and a bunch of sinks.
Okay.
Every morning you had to get in there, do your thing, and then fall out for duty and do what you had to do for the day. Well, once I got down there, also Vietnam was starting, okay? We were over in Vietnam at that time, so I had no idea what they were going to do with us. So we went and we had excessive training, you know, all kinds of training, putting up bridges across spans and with heavy equipment and all, you know, guard duty. Went to the range again, qualified with a carbine this time, okay?
Yeah.
And then I was put in charge of a, you know, a 30 caliber machine gun. You've seen a machine gun, you know what they look like?
Yeah.
With a big tripod. I was in charge of that when we went out into maneuvers. We went out to sleep out. I want to tell you this. You want to talk how cold it was when we went out? We went out in the wintertime, like this. This is in Massachusetts. I had 2 sleeping bags just to try to stay warm. That's how cold it was. And what you would do is you take all your clothes off that you could, you put it in between the sleeping bags, and then you just push up as high as you could and stay there. The only bad part is if you had to get up and go to John. That wasn't too good. But just tell you some of the stuff. And we trained. We went out on Cape Cod and we trained and we went all over and trained. Finally, it subsided, okay? It finally gave up, and I wasn't shipped out to Berlin and I wasn't shipped to Vietnam. And after about, it wasn't quite a year, they finally let us know that we were being released from the service.
All right.
The second time I got another stripe, and I was an E5 when I got out. I think I made $123 a month. When I first went in, I made $78 a month. No, that's all there was. I'm being serious with you.
That's a difference.
I could show you. I'll show you. I can show you afterwards some of the pay slips. I kept everything from the service.
Real quick, I just want to ask Andrew, could I give you a ride home?
No.
Okay, because you're going to have to leave here in about 4 minutes,
All right.
so I just wanted to make sure you get to ask
Yeah.
everything you wanted to ask.
Yeah, final question. What were the emotions that you felt when you finally were released from the Army?
I was very proud that I served. I'm telling you the truth. There's no greater experience I've ever had in my life is not serving my country. That's the way I felt, because when I grew up, I watched my cousins, my uncles, all go off into World War II. I was young, and one of my cousins was killed in Peru by the Japanese, okay? I'll just tell you a story. Another one, uncle, flew in the B-17s, and he actually made it. You know, most guys didn't make it. He was a belly gunner, and he made all the missions. But I felt I had an obligation when I was called. I felt I owed something, you know?
Oh.
The second time, I wasn't too happy, but I went and I did what I had to do, you know? So, there's friendships here that I still are in contact with, okay? And that's the truth. A comradeship that you probably will never realize, because when in the military and you're going through training, you depend on the other person with you
Yeah.
all the time, okay? He's there with you. He won't leave you behind. That's one thing they never left behind. And when I finished basic, I got to tell them this. We had some tough, hard-nosed, old soldiers from World War II and Korean. And when they finished basic, and they were tough on us, and they were, believe me. He says, one thing I want you to remember, and he got us all up there. There are no atheists in foxholes or bunkers. Do you hear what he said?
Yeah.
And he said, you know, when a guy gets wounded, who he's asking for, it's either mom, his wife, and God. No, really, and he was very he was very strong about it. And you think about it, you know,
Yeah.
that was it, you know. And I guess, is there anything else you want to add? I tried to cover everything, and I don't know if I did or not,
Well, I
but,
think you,
Yeah.
I think you covered a lot.
Oh,
yeah.
did you?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I
Yeah, I
do. I
learned
think
a
it was
lot.
great. And
You know, Andrew, is there anything else you could think of? Hit me with
No.
something, anything, anything. Oh, did you ever see these dog tags? Did you ever see what's on a dog tag?
No.
Look at it.
why don't you look at the dog tag, and then you better leave, because I don't want you to
Yeah.
miss the bus.
It's
And
got,
I'll take
it's
pictures
got your
of
number
everything.
on there, my name, my religion, and my blood type. And you know why they carry those, in case you were wounded, right?
Yeah.
Now, years before that, they didn't have anything.
Do they have serial number on them too?
Pardon?
Serial number?
Yeah, my serial number's on there.
Okay.
One set was for the first time I was in, the second was second time, and being that I was a draftee, it was always US in front of my number instead of RA. Now, the
Okay.
second time was ER because it was reserves, I guess. So,
Now, what we can do you have some questions you want to ask? Other
Um,
things you were thinking? Because why don't you get your stuff,
Yeah.
and I will take pictures of it, but if you want to ask, I'll film. Like if you have some questions that you
come
were
on,
thinking
hit me.
of.
Ask me anything. If you guys want pictures, they're in this book.
Oh
I
yeah,
can leave-
I'm gonna take pictures with
you
my
can take
camera.
that and I can leave this stuff here if you'd want both of it and pick it up because of the school,
Oh.
and maybe you could go through with it. This would
Okay.
tell you the history
We
of
could-
me when I first went in from the beginning all the way through the service. Okay?
Well, Andrew, you might want to. Why don't I take it and
All
have
right.
it at my room, and then you come by sometime
Yeah,
and
and-
take a look at everything.
Yeah, and I'll leave both of them here.
Since-
Here, there's something I'll tell you what my wife had got for me back 1957. How basic training is. You'll laugh if you've seen it. This was a picture of, oh, you already seen that stuff, and that'll be your teacher down at high school someday. Oh, is there anything? Oh, he wants to ask.
Yeah, but
Oh, Andrew was so nice. I hope I didn't, you know.
Yeah. Oh, no,
Listen,
this is
before you go,
fascinating.
I wanted both of you guys, I wanted a picture.
you want me
don't
to take a
mind,
pic?
do you?
No, yeah.
Nope, I'll take
No.
a picture for you guys, and then
It's all set to
you've
go.
got all your stuff ready to go.
And all
right?
you
Yeah.
have to do is
Okay.
hit this one
'Cause
here.
I don't want you
Come
to
on over
miss
here,
the
guys,
bus.
both of you.
Okay.
I want to be with, this is really important to me. Believe me.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Take another one.
1, 2, 3. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Nice.
All right, honey, go catch that bus so you
All
don't
right.
miss it.
Hey,
Thank you.
wait a minute. Come here. I want you to take a picture. That's the button.
Oh, right here?
Oh.
I
Well,
want-
how about he takes it so he can get going?
Okay,
I don't want
all
him
right,
to miss
okay.
the bus.
I want a picture with her.
Okay, so go ahead, and then Andrew, get your stuff.
All right.
Don't miss the bus.
Yeah.
Okay, honey. And then I'll see you tomorrow after school.
All right, yeah.
Okay.
I hope you enjoyed it.
All right. Beautiful.
All right, one more. Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. All right, so I'll film, and if you have, do you have some questions that you were thinking of?
Well, I have one.
Okay, good. Well, then have a seat and ask it.
Sit down and ask me. You
What
name
was
it.
what was the most funny event that happened during your?
Funny event?
What was the most funny event that happened during your time in the
Funny?
army?
You talking about funny? Oh, gosh. I don't know. I can't remember a really funny event. Well, I don't know if you want to call it a funny event. I had guard duty, and I was sergeant of the guard. And I had guys that were out there supposed to be guard duty. This was funny, but I could have crowned this guy. I went to the post to see where this guy was, all right? He was supposed to be on his post doing it, his guard duty. I couldn't find him. I got a little nervous because big trouble, right? Guess where I found him? In the day room playing pool. So I kind of, chewed the guy out a little bit, and we got him straightened around, and things worked out pretty good. It wasn't too bad. Go ahead.
I have a question.
Sure.
And you can pretend he's
Oh, good.
asking it. How did they prepare you for how cold it was going to be? Like, what did they do in training when you found out you were going
in training?
to the Arctic? Yeah.
Well, they had many first aid, all kinds of first aid, how to take care of frostbite if you did have frostbite, and in fact, you could be court-martialed with frostbite. I seen guys come in that thought, oh yeah, and they come in and their ears all swelled up and they fluid and so forth and so on. But we went through probably a couple of weeks, I guess, an extensive on the cold weather, how to dress, and dress, good thing you asked, layered clothes, not tight, but layered. And wool was probably the best thing to wear to keep you warm. In fact, you see this? This is made out of wool, okay? I could fall asleep on this thing, lay on the floor and get up and it drop right down again. And that's what my big overcoat was like too when I was in. Did that answer?
Yeah, just
Go
because
ahead, ask me
it's
something
so
else.
cold up there.
Oh, it was
You
cold.
know?
But you know what? Your blood, thickens, I guess, and you start getting used to the cold. Okay? I got to tell you this story. The only time I liked milk is when we had chocolate powdered milk. What they would do is they'd make the powdered milk, right? And they put chocolate in it, so it didn't taste too bad. But powdered eggs you got used to. You put a lot of salt, a lot of pepper on it, The water you didn't drink. Oh, I never touched the water.
Now, in terms of, since we were up there and we were strategizing during the
Yeah.
Cold War time,
Sure.
were there any Russians that
Never
you...
seen any Russians at all. The only thing is, they told us some Eskimos come by. I have no idea. This was one of the guys. Oh, there's some Eskimos come by. They were looking for a firing pin for a 22 rifle or something. I says, really? I didn't see anybody. I didn't even know if they were putting on the story, but maybe they were. And of course, we were told never to get close because they're full of TB and stuff like that, and so forth and so on. Arctic foxes, some polar bears. Yeah, I see, And the ice cap was awesome to see. It was a huge. It was like looking off in a mountain and seeing a huge, but it was all ice. You could see it blowing. And the road we had was built by the engineers to get up onto the top of it. And then you were going out towards the North Pole. I don't know how close we
Wow.
got, but, it was...
What about the Aurora Borealis?
Oh, it's gorgeous. Glad you mentioned it. Oh, it was beautiful. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Those were some of the nice things.
That would be really neat,
Yeah,
I think. Do you know what that is? The lights and everything? Okay, yeah.
There wasn't much to do but play cards and read all the time. There was no television, no radio. Oh, yes, I guess you could get a station from the air base. Now, if you went to the air base was like a city, up there in the Arctic, But one thing you want to remember this, I wish your buddy was here. You always wonder why we still have troops in Europe, right? Still have air bases. We have Thule, we have Pearl Harbor, we have Okinawa. We're over in the Far East too, we have places. The reason being, think about it. People say, well, why do you have that? That's because if somebody tries to invade us, when I was a little boy, young boy, I don't know if I was quite your age, no. The Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. They were off the coast. The Germans were off the coast, okay? Now we have systems where nobody can get too close to us before we know they're there. When I was in the service, the guy says, Ouimette, what do you think they got this for? That's so they don't hit us first and we grab them. That makes sense. Go ahead, ask me some more stuff.
What are all those medals along?
Oh, the medals? Well, there's good conduct, national defense. One is Cold War. One is Army commemorative. And I forgot what the other one is there. Something to do, I served overseas. That's all, not a big deal. As I say, I wasn't in any combat stuff. This here is for a carbine, this is for a rifle. this here, 2 pins here, the US, that's when I was in the engineers. You see that? This was when I was in what they call a transportation outfit. Down here, it just tells you the times I was in the service and so forth. That's all. Anything else? Go ahead, shoot. Did I ever shoot anybody? No. What did they train you with? When I was in basic, I'll tell you this.
Trained you with the blanks.
They train you that if you were into warfare, you got to remember this is the 50s where they were shooting back and forth and so forth, is that you never wait for the other guy to get up there and take a pop shot at you if you are. You follow me? If you wait, it's too late. They also, what was else? There was another thing that they kind of pushed about, and I can't remember exactly what it was. You never do anything without a backup. That's what it was. It's just like a policeman today. They should never go without another person there. And this other person will always take care of you, or he'll, you know, help you out in case you have a problem or something happens.
Now, how many were?
Another,
Oh, go
pardon?
ahead. No, go ahead. You go ahead,
I
and
was
then I'll
going to
ask.
tell you, another thing is, when we were training, you learn to throw hand grenades, and you also learn to use a bayonet. I don't know if they use them anymore.
Yeah.
Just to let you know, and that wasn't very pleasant because you always wondered, here's what you wondered, if you did go into combat, how would it be? How would it, you know, that was something that always ran through every guy's mind if it did. Okay, go ahead.
Mine was, how many people were up there in the Arctic with you? Like, how many were on the base?
Our unit was small, and it was, and they were all mostly highly skilled. I would say maybe 100 and some, 120, 130.
Okay. And then how long were you there at a time before you had some leave?
We were there, I was there 5 months and some days, I forgot what it was. We came home. When we came home, it was the fall. So, you know what I mean?
So you left in the spring and came back in the fall?
Yeah, and I never
Okay.
got to see a summer, you know.
Oh,
except,
okay.
And at night, in order to sleep, we had a couple little windows, you want to call it, in the Quonset huts like this, right? We'd put curtains over them so you'd think it was night and you were sleeping in.
Right, because you had like all day.
Yeah.
And then when would the light, like when would the Aurora Borealis lights happen? When was that then?
Oh gosh, I don't remember. It would be kind of towards the nighttime. You know, it wouldn't be the bright of the day. It would be late. You know.
Right.
And somebody
Okay.
yell and you'd go
Neat.
look.
How
But
neat.
after a while, everything didn't get to be. You know.
Right. Well, and I can't believe you didn't ask this.
Go ahead. You got
Did
anything
he
else?
ever encounter Santa Claus?
Pardon?
Did you ever encounter Santa Claus? Being up all the way
yes,
up there.
a couple times. Oh, he probably doesn't want this, but this was Our Lady of Thule. This was some kind we kind of prayed to. I was a Catholic, okay? And I was awarded, I don't have it any, Knights of the Blue Nose. And also I had another thing my wife couldn't find. She was, when I crossed over into the Arctic, and I don't know, it was, you know how you go to the other way?
Oh, yeah.
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 And I don't know, she said she didn't know where it was, so whatever.
Well, that's probably like the Navy guys when they cross
Yes,
the
exactly.
equator.
Yeah, equator.
And they
Yeah,
have
you hit it right,
the whole
yeah.
Neptune.
You got anything else to ask me?
I
while
think,
we're
I
here?
mean, you
wish
gave us.
I don't
think,
know if I covered everything
oh my
I
gosh.
wanted to. And
I think, I mean, I was just glancing at all the different things that we wanted to ask you, and
I
you
tried to
got
cover,
everything.
you know, I don't know if other guys did, to cover the experiences, you know,
No,
which
you,
had.
you did. I mean, this
The,
was
the friendships were unbelievable. And you got so close up there because that's all you had, you know.
Yep.
And as I said, it wasn't, they probably have investigations today if you were anything like that in the Army back then 50-some years ago. But that's the way you lived, and you did exist because you took care of yourself. You tried to keep your body clean as best you could. Brush your teeth, a dish.
Well, this was
You know,
great. You answered a lot. I mean,
you know, it was, oh, you know what this is?
No.
This is what they issue when you go in the Army. It's a sewing kit.
oh,
I still have it because sometimes, if you didn't, these were garters you used to hold up your
oops.
pants or whatever the heck it was. Yeah, stuff. But you would have to sew your own patches on and so forth. And I mean, you got very self-sufficient. And I'm going to tell you another story. When I was in the service, we had some of the sharpest guys in the world. that were drafted. They don't have a draft now. They have it, but they don't draft. Now, the draft, you know how you got your best doctors? They were drafted. Dentists, they were drafted. Nurses, they were drafted. Engineers, they were drafted. You know what I'm talking about? These guys would come, and I was with guys that had all kinds of degrees. When they finished basic training, that's to make you a soldier. These guys that were their sharp guys, they went to missile sites. The other guys went to the hospitals, you know. They went right to them because they were real brilliant, sharp guys. Now, I'm not saying the military's is good, but I don't think they had the talent when I was in that they have today. Because I'm telling you, when they drafted, this is, you know, this is how they drafted everybody. So they got all kinds of people. Lawyers, they were drafted. They went into the, whatever the corps is, the Judge Advocate Corps. That's what they call it. That's another story I was going to tell you about. All these people that you meet. I met guys from Washington, from Iowa, Michigan, from Kentucky, from Tennessee. The guy from Kentucky, he's old enough to tell you. He came back with some white lightning. You know what white lightning is? She does. Never mind. It's whiskey they made in the hills. You heard of that? You know, the bootleggers?
Moonshine?
I mean, it was really enlightening. And another story I'm going to tell you before I leave, and I just remembered it. One of my best friends was from Chicago, and he was Afro-American, and he worked for the telephone company, right? So you got to remember that I'm not used to this atmosphere. I'm used to going any place here. Well, we went into town, right? All of us together. We couldn't go into the bar because Afro-Americans weren't allowed. Okay? We couldn't go into the movie theater. We couldn't go into the restaurant. And when we went to the beach, Virginia Beach, or down there, or Yorktown Beach, we couldn't go there together because you weren't allowed. But that's the way the world was, and I'm trying to make a big impression of you. Try to think back. That's the way the world was in the 50s. Not very nice. Very difficult for me, coming from here. I never accepted that. That bothered me probably more than anything, and I've told that story so many times, and a lot of people say, you're kidding, Ronnie. I said, no. I never shall shock my wife. Of course, when I went into the men's room, the Afro-American guys, a couple of guys, they were smiling. I don't know what they was. Of course, you know why. I mean, they're saying this guy is not from this part of the country. That's for sure.